Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Gospel Rebel, where we equip you to stand firm in your faith as a true man of God. In a society where authentic biblical manhood is under attack, we empower you to rise above the lies and oppression to embrace the gospel as the natural rebel against darkness. And now, here's your host, Rich Miller.
Hey guys, welcome to the next segment of the Gospel Rebel podcast. We want to talk about something today that may be a little controversial, but I think we need to talk about it from a biblical perspective because in my humble appraisal, the church has been way too silent on issues regarding our children. Parents often have felt like they're alone standing for the safety of their children during all these woke ideologies. And it's quite alarming to where our children are under attack, politicized. And Jesus had something to say about this. Now, you're going to see on your screen here in just a few seconds a law that was passed by the legislature in Idaho. And it may seem a little bit harsh, but it's kind of somewhat more humane than what even Jesus himself said about this topic. And what did Jesus say about the kids? Well, we'll read that in a minute. But this is a report from American News. Idaho becomes the first state to legalize firing squads for convicted pedophiles. Now, I do have a law enforcement background. I worked a lot of domestics. And any seasoned law enforcement officer will tell you that a bitter spouse, male or female, will attempt to set you up for an arrest, as far as trying to make themselves look bloody or battered, just to get at the other spouse. Now, what I have also seen in law enforcement is if a spouse is bitter at the other spouse, accusations can be made against the spouse's family or a friend, whatever, just to retaliate. And there have been cases where that's happened when that retaliation has been under the guise of assaulting children in a very horrible way. And so there are situations where people get set up. I get that. Okay. Any seasoned cop will agree with that. However, I do agree with this Idaho law. We're going to see what Jesus can say about that law in just a minute. However, I would say that there should be more than just an accusation to put somebody in front of a firing squad. And there should be corroborating scientific evidence, medical evidence, and so forth. Something far more than just an accusation, because sometimes people get incarcerated just over a mere accusation. And sometimes those accusations are true. However, when you're talking about taking human life, we need to be absolutely sure of the guilty receiving capital punishment. Now, you may ask, why am I making this video? Well, it's mainly to protect the children. The church, as I aforementioned, has been way too silent on this stuff. And I say the church at large. Baptist ministers have been quite silent on this stuff. They say it's political. Listen, it's not political, because Jesus had something to say about it. And if people want to know what God says about stuff, some Christian, some pastor must stand up and say what God has said about this. And so that's where I'm launching from. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be political. To me, this is spiritual, because if Jesus commented on it, by all means, a Christian or a pastor should as well, and not be concerned about what a politician may think. These are politicians passing laws to protect the children. I have not read the actual code section of what they're passing. I just saw the headline that the state of Idaho is taking the protection of their children very seriously. And I just want to encourage the church and preachers out there to be more vocal about things that are political. And from my humble appraisal, the pulpit has jurisdiction, spiritual, biblical jurisdiction over 99% of the stuff that's going wrong in this country. And if the church would just stand up and be the voice of God that it's supposed to be, not going along, getting along, but being a rebel against all this ideology and this craziness and satanic behavior that is hurting people and much more our kids. So I'm going to share something that Jesus said about the children, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this verse. So let's read it out of Luke. It's in different places, but let's read it out of Luke chapter number 17, verse 1. Then said he unto the disciples, this is Jesus speaking, it is impossible but that offenses will come, but woe, that word woe means judgment. But woe unto him through whom they come. In other words, Jesus has already pronounced a negative verdict here on people who offend. And he goes on to clarify the offense. Verse 2, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he cast into the sea than he should offend one of these little ones. Talking about the children. And he said, suffer not the little children to come unto me. A nation that can't protect its children will fall under the judgment of God very quickly. And that's where America is heading. And I'm glad to see legislatures such as the ones in Idaho taking a stand for the protection of our children. Now, people say, well, that's pretty harsh, a firing squad. I agree. But it's not as harsh if you think about the manner of death of what Jesus was talking about. When someone is drowning, it is probably one of the worst ways to die. Firing squad is relatively quick, especially a shot to the cranial vault. It's relatively quick, lights out, that kind of a thing. When you're drowning, you got a couple of seconds to think about it for sure. And it's a ghastly thing. You're gasping for breath, and it's a very cruel way to die. So what I'm trying to tell you is Jesus had a zero tolerance policy on hurting children, and he didn't give any leeway on it. Thank you for joining us. God bless you.
If you enjoy this content, please subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know other men who are ready to take a stand, well, share this podcast with them and invite them to join our gospel rebellion. Thanks again for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time right here on the Gospel Rebel.